Good afternoon. I'm Tracy Sinclair here at Alaska's News Source. September is Hunger Action Month. And for many of us, I think we have a certain image of what hunger looks like. And it might be from commercials from the 1980s, but it looks a little different in our day-to-day lives and in our own community. So we want to talk a little bit more about that. So joining me today is Daniel Bentel. He's the Chief Philanthropy Officer at the Food Bank of Alaska. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us here at Alaska's News Source. We just want to talk a little bit about the issue of hunger in Alaska. Can you give us kind of a scope of what we're really talking about when we're talking about that issue?
Yeah, absolutely. And Tracy, thank you for having us. On behalf of our team, we're appreciative of the opportunity to share a little bit about this story because, hunger and food insecurity in general is often overlooked. I mean, it impacts more people than you'd expect. Just to kind of put it in perspective, a common misconception is that food insecurity or the fight against hunger is going much better than it is. And that maybe the food insecurity rate was at its height during or immediately after the pandemic, when that just simply is not the case. Just to kind of frame it up, a couple of years ago, the Feeding America did a study on the rate of food insecurity across the country, and looking at by state and by groups that are more at risk than others. And to just even look at a local level here in Alaska, in 2022, 12.8% of the population, that's 1 in every 8 families, was falling under the level of food insecurity. In 2020, 2 years prior, that was 10.8%. And so things have just continued to rise. The need is greater. And that makes sense that our food insecurity rate here in our state is much more challenged even than in most of the states across the lower 48. I mean, when you take into account the uniqueness of the last frontier, our population is certainly at greater risk, with some 95% of our food imported, to say nothing of the distribution challenges across the state, spread over some 700,000 square miles, a large portion living in rural areas. We have distribution challenges here that are much more akin to emerging markets, where I've had the privilege to see some of that challenge directly. Even just to kind of add to that a little bit too, as of 2022, the average cost of a meal in the U.S. overall was $3.99, compared to an average cost of a meal in Alaska of $4.70. And that's just in 2022. That's 18% higher in Alaska when compared to the rest of the United States. And that's a 25% increase in just the last couple of years, to say nothing about the time since 2022 and when that study was published. So it just continues to get more challenging.
And so we use the term food insecurity. And now in my brain, that means, particularly as a state, as you said, we have to import so much of our food that if something happens to our shipping. But on a sort of personal level, on a family level, what does it mean to be food insecure on that personal level?
Yeah. Well, the way that we think about food insecurity and the way that it makes sense that it would be defined is a lack of access at any times to enough food for an active and healthy lifestyle. And especially in these economic times when we just see housing costs rising, increasing economic pressures, just the residual effects of the pandemic, and just how far a dollar has to be stretched. We're seeing more and more even stretching into the middle class in some areas, where there's just a concern around overall budgets. And so, most of, when we're talking about 12.8% of the population, or one in every 8 families, here in the state of Alaska, we're looking at, those who have concerns about where their next meal will come from. And again, when we're looking at shipping challenges and that sort of thing, it becomes an increasing concern for so many families, especially when that average meal cost is rising. One of the other things, Tracy, I'd also add is the need right now around hunger in our state is exacerbated by an overall lack of awareness around the issue too. Again, food insecurity is rising, it's not declining, but what is declining is support, and that is giving. And that's in large part due to a lack of awareness around just the magnitude of the challenge and the assumption that food insecurity was, again, at its height during the pandemic, And as a result, we're seeing just less in the way of monetary and in-kind donations. We're going through our resources, and the shelves are empty. So we're in need of support, volunteer and otherwise.
And so, speaking of that, one of the things I think is interesting about it being named Hunger Action Month, many times we have awareness months where we're aware of a problem, but this feels like it's a specific call to action. What can Alaskans do? You say that your donations are down. Is it better to give money? Is it better to give food? What's the best way that Alaskans can help?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, so there's a variety of things. Both are needed. We've got to keep the operation running. We know, of course, where we need to pull things into the system in order to get food where it needs to go. But in-kind donations, food donations directly are also incredibly helpful. There's a lot of just canned goods and other goods that can be reclaimed and redistributed, and that's one of the key things that our operation exists for. Outside of that, giving is one way. Time, again, money, resources, donating directly. Every dollar counts in the fight against hunger, and that can be done right on our website. Volunteering. This week, we have one of our biggest volunteering weeks of our season. We have a number of our community partners who've come in to support in large groups and helping us build boxes for our senior box program that is shipping food out to even across the state and rural areas to those populations who are at risk, especially among our senior population. Another big way that everyone can support is advocating and just educating oneself and others around the issue, understanding a little bit more about what food insecurity looks like, the magnitude of the need. And I've just seen very, very quickly among our own donor base here that when there is an understanding of the level of need, there's an immediate response. Even just a week ago, thanks to one of our very ardent anonymous donors who had seen our shelves empty, we received a 600-pound delivery via Instacart from Costco, which was timely. It allowed us to immediately get that food out and into the hands of where it was needed, and was just a phenomenal, more opportunistic, immediate gift that was incredibly helpful. Also, just this month in general, Tracy mentioned Hunger Action Month. There are a variety of events that are happening. And again, this month as a whole across the country is just built around, through the Feeding America Network, just built around raising awareness around the issue across the country. And we do that through a variety of different events. You mentioned Restaurant Week in our conversation prior. So that's happening coming up here at the end of this month, where you can dine out against hunger. So you can visit our website and see kind of where which restaurants across the city are participating, and dine out there during those hours. And a portion of that is going to go immediately to support our efforts. We're also hosting our Anti-Hunger Network conference here on site at the Food Bank of Alaska headquarters later this month. You can find that on our website as well. And hosting the after hours, or the business after hours, with the Anchorage Chamber on the 19th from 5 to 7 p.m. So we'd love people to come, just get involved. There'll be even opportunities to volunteer right there during the event itself. And again, just a way to raise awareness and spread the word, because that lack of awareness is one of the key things that needs to be addressed in order to overcome some of the challenges that we're facing right now as well.
And we did get, Arnold also did say on our Facebook page here that how much the price of meat has gone up in rural Alaska. You were talking about the changes and how expensive it is, obviously, with shipping in Alaska. And just, I know our company in the past, we've done a volunteer session at the food bank sorting food. And it's a simple, but it was an easy way to help out. And again, you kind of get a better idea of what's going on. You were talking about the conference going on. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so this is our Anti-Hunger Network conference. This is the second year we've hosted it. We're hosting it here at our still relatively new headquarters on Viking Drive. And it's a conference just positioned around educating, convening, and drawing in the broader hunger network, if you will. But we cannot do what we do if not for the partnership and support of community leaders like do, like Credit Union One, who was in yesterday, like Global Credit Union that's in right now to support us. We have some of our legislature coming in on Friday to also volunteer right there in that room that you have on the screen. And what that serves to do is just galvanize the community and raise awareness and cause others to come in. I'm quite confident we'll see a surge of volunteers come in, even just the weeks coming after that, thanks to others coming in and kind of raising the bar for us. And you should see a bit of the kind of competition that takes place when some of these larger groups come in terms of kind of the number of boxes they're able to assemble that then go out into the community after that. But that really does serve to raise awareness around this broader issue as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Daniel. I do just want to give you one last moment. You've got, what would you like to say to the state of Alaska? How can people help? What's the final word on your mind?
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. I think the thing that I've been hearing most emphatically and consistently from our network is that they just need us to put out the call to make people aware of the need that we have for donations, for volunteer support, for any level of support. And people will step forward. And that's what we're doing now. We're putting out that call to make it clear that the need is greater, we need support, and every little bit helps. And we're so grateful for the surge of support we've even seen in the last couple of weeks. But it's a big mountain to climb, and we need support. So thank you. Appreciate those who are stepping forward.
Thank you again to Daniel Bentel with the Food Bank of Alaska. Please remember that September is Hunger Action Month. I'm Tracy Sinclair. Thank you for listening to In Depth Alaska. Please like and subscribe to this podcast.